Welcome. It's 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. The Tooele City Council and Redevelopment Agency of Tooele City are meeting in a work meeting that's being held at Tooele City Hall in the council chambers located at 90 North Main Street in Tooele, Utah. We're also streaming this electronically on the Tooele City YouTube channel. We will start with a roll call. Councilman Gossett.
Present.
Councilwoman Goches.
Present.
Councilman Hanson.
Present.
Councilman McCall.
Present.
I'm Councilman Brady, and I'm also present. We'll move on to item 3, which is the mayor's report. We'll turn the time over to Mayor Manzio.
Thank you, Council. Just a couple of things. Of course, we're grateful for the snow, and we're expecting more, so hopefully that will continue to fall. I know it's shocking for some of us to see that white stuff out there, but it's going to be helpful this summer. Just a little legislative report. There are over 900 bills so far with 12 days still to go on the legislative session, so there's a lot to follow. Hopefully some of you are able to watch the league meetings in the evenings. They are recorded and posted on their website. Today I had a meeting with about the Shelter Cities Board, and we talked about some of the homeless bills. Representative Eliason, I don't know how to say it, is trying to do a homeless bill to end all homeless bills in the next 12 days. So we'll see what happens. But as you know, we don't receive the Homeless Mitigation Fund money, and so they're trying to work on a formula that is more fair to the cities with homeless shelters. So it's kind of a big thing. We had 5 new officers sworn in a couple weeks ago, so that was very exciting. And then with the snow has come a few challenges with the wind and the snow. We've had several down power lines, some downed trees that have damaged some fences. Our golf course had some significant damage from the wind and a fallen tree, and then we've had several fires also. So I just like to express thanks to our Public Works Department and our police and fire, who have been extremely busy in the last few days, and hopefully that slows down a little bit. And that's my report for today. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 4, the council members report. We'll start with Councilman McCall.
Oh, thank you. I have very little to report. I attended a ribbon cuttings ceremony on last Monday at the Tropical Smoothie Cafe. Prior to that, and I appreciate you giving me the time to take a vacation, so the last 2 meetings I missed. And it was fun. And that's my report, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Hanson.
I've been gone most of the last 2 weeks with my job, so hunting stuff, which I can report a lot about hunting stuff, and we've had lots of fun, and I did see Jamie at the hunting show, so that was cool. But the snow's great. I think our snowpack will get better this week, so it can't get worse. Yeah, and that's really all I have.
Thank you. Councilwoman Goches.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also attended the ribbon cutting for Tropical Smoothie Cafe, and they have yummy smoothies, so I recommend it. Also, an RDA executive meeting that was on February the 5th, and then an RDA meeting on February the 12th. I also attended the retirement luncheon for Jamie Grand Prix. Welcome to Jamie and his beautiful wife. We're sad to see them go, but happy for their next adventure, and it's been an honor to work with you. Thank you. On the 17th, I did attend the legislative session with Representative Peck at the State Capitol. I just admire the beautiful building that was made with beautiful natural stone, and everything there comes from Utah, so it was an opportunity of a lifetime. I also attended the LPC meeting via Zoom because I was in meetings. I also attended our budget kickoff meeting that we held last night, and want to give a shout out to the mayor and to Shannon Wimmer and to Cami for their presentations, and I think we've got a feel for some of the budget requirements for this year, and so it's always good to start at a good point. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Gossett.
All right. So I was at the budget kickoff meeting last night as well. A week ago, I was able to attend the Arts Council meeting. They talked about the progress on the Ritz Theater. think the ceiling's in now, and they've got events starting as early as I think this Saturday. And I know they were completing the Fridays on Vine lineup, and so that was fun to go to that meeting. I also attended the Children's Justice Center meeting, and they went over the numbers of all of the people that they were able to help last year. And it was pretty shocking to me how much good they do over at the Children's Justice Center. And then, lastly, I completed the Open and Public Meetings Act training and the introductory training for municipal officials. So I was busy.
Nice work. All right, I also attended the budget kickoff last night. I feel like we had a good discussion, and I feel like Tooele City's in a good financial position, so nice work over the years. And then just the weekly staff meetings. As always, thank you to the staff for all the work you do. I know a lot of it goes unseen, but I want the public to always know that you do a lot that isn't seen by them, so thank you. All right, we'll move on to our discussion items. Our first discussion is a discussion on Resolution 2026-08, a resolution of the Tooele City Council waiving development impact fees for the Tooele County Housing Authority's Harvey subdivision, presented by Matthew Johnson, the city attorney.
Good evening. Thank you, Council. Tonight's work meeting and also, and again on the business meeting, we're offering for Council's consideration a request from the Tooele County Housing Authority to waive the impact fees associated with the Harvey subdivision. That's going to be 6 dwelling units. The impact fees, my understanding, are about $16,000 per dwelling unit under Tooele City Code Section 4-15-5. City Council can consider to waive up to $10,000 per housing unit. Again, there are 6 units in this construction. A waiver of those would mean that those would be covered by another funding source, but it would be an opportunity to ease the impact to the housing authority to provide that benefit to those individuals who need that help. And Executive Director Karen Kuipers is here as well. If you have any questions for myself or
So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. If it's okay, I didn't send this beforehand, but I thought this morning it might be helpful for you to see what is the profile of those that are being helped with this program that to this point has been all in Tooele City. We have had Okay, so what you have in front of you is just a quick profile of those that have been helped with the Mutual Self-Help Program. This is a program that the Housing Authority is very proud of. It's a home ownership program that's done in conjunction with USDA Rural Development. And under this program, households that are low income or very low income come in and they build their own homes. It could take 9 to 18 months. We've got that down to about 9 months right now. And when they close on that home, they basically have the sweat equity. They're able to get a very low interest rate through rural development. And we have the Murdoch subdivision, which currently, if anybody's been through it, it's over next to the Harris Community Village. And we have 21 homes that are just being finished in that subdivision. You are all invited to the open house tomorrow if you want to go walk through them. And the next one is the Harvey subdivision. That's on 6 North and 2nd West. Infrastructure is just being finished there, and so we have 6 applicants that have applied for these homes. Again, under the resolution or the request for the impact waiver fees, council did waive the impact fees on the Murdoch subdivision, which is that $10,000. That made the difference, particularly for our very low income families. They would not have qualified if we had another 10,000 added to their loans. It just wouldn't happen. We couldn't make the numbers work. So we appreciate very much the contribution that the city has made in the past to make homeownership dream a reality for those in Tooele City. And as you look at the list of those who have been helped, again, we've got 2 that are electrician journeymen, we've got a couple school teachers, we have 3 police officers or corrections officers, truck driver, auto mechanic, maintenance worker, we have nurse, disabled vet, construction workers, postal workers, dental assistants, and assembly line workers, and those that have been currently helped with these funds. So any questions for the Housing Authority?
What time tomorrow?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What time tomorrow?
It is at 5 o'clock. The program will start in the gymnasium of Harris Community Village just because it's snowing and windy. And then afterwards, we'll walk over to the 8 homes. So probably about 5:30. It's a pretty short program.
So the impact fee is about 16,000 and we're waiving 10,000 if
Yes.
we.
Yes,
Okay.
the total impact fees are about 16,000, but per the code, the maximum, I believe, is 10,000 that can be waived.
And that's what we did before in 19. Yeah.
Okay.
So these are, you're going to allow on these homes, they're going to be able to do sweat equity.
Yes.
Where the other 2 that are in that area, they did not do that, correct?
Okay, so the ones that are across the street on 2nd West and 6th North, those were Crown homes, so those are rent-to-own, so that's a different program. So under that program, those tenants are able to rent for 15 years, and then once they finish that, they have the opportunity to purchase those homes.
Okay.
So that is a different program.
All right.
So if I could ask, for the Harvey, that also was one of the programs where the participants built their homes and helped the other people?
Yes, so
Okay.
this will be Group 4.
Group
So they
4,
haven't
okay.
started yet. We just finished, in fact, they're just about to finish the end of that sidewalk. So we have applications right now for the 6 homeowners that will go into those sites. So pending approval. Again, I believe we have 2 or 3 very low income with the Harvey. I can tell you that if we're not able to waive those impact fees, that is going to drop off those very low income. We cannot make the numbers work for those households that are at or below 50% of AMI without the assistance, so.
Can I ask a range where their mortgage payment ends up being?
Yes, so the loan value has been around $360,000 total, ranging between $900 and $1,500 is where those mortgages are, and it depends on the income level and the subsidy that they qualify for. But we have some that are as low as about $950, I believe, some in the $1,200, some up to $1,500. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath,
Okay.
unfinished basement. So. And they do need to put in 30 hours a week minimum the entire time, so they work hard. And they do need to bring volunteers. Usually it's family or friends that come in to help, but they do need to do 30 hours a week for that 9 months to 12 months, but we're getting it down to 9 months. So.
I actually work with the nurse who works at Mountain West, so I heard her story a lot, and it was kind of cool to hear her talk about she was working really hard full-time at the hospital and then still putting in the sweat equity. So it's a great program. I think it's good for these people.
Agreed.
And the quality of the homes were so nice. It was really fun to go into that community. And I'd been a couple of times to see people when they were working and then to see the finished product.
Yeah.
And they were so proud, and they're beautiful. So.
Yeah. Thank you for attending and seeing that. And they are amazing, and they do amazing work. And we have a couple of construction supervisors with the Housing Authority that are there every minute of every day and guiding, but they don't do the work. It's the households, the family members that do the work, and they do amazing when you're doing your own home too. They want it right. And so it's amazing what they've been able to achieve.
Do they have to live in the home for so long before they can sell? Is there?
So in those that are in the Murdoch subdivision, they don't. They could sell, and they've realized their equity through the sweat equity that they put in. We actually need to look at how we can do some different deed restrictions. I will tell you that Tooele City, as of after the Harvey subdivision, is no longer considered rural, so we won't be able to do this program after Harvey. As we've looked in other areas of the county, that's also something that we're trying to fine-tune, is how do we do some deed restrictions. But really, they've earned their equity through that 9 months to 12 months of 30 hours a week. So.
Okay, any other questions or comments? This will be on our business meeting to vote on, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Romanzion has a comment.
Just a reminder that if we waive the impact fees, we do still have to pay those impact fees. So since it's not in our budget, this year we'd have to take it out of fund balance. So just so you know where the money is coming from.
Okay. Appreciate your consideration.
Yeah, so 60,000.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next discussion item, a discussion on JUB Water Rights Planning Study presented by Jamie Grand Prix, the former Public Works Director, and Nathan Farr, the Public Works Director. Welcome back, Jamie, and welcome, Nathan.
The mayor was sweet enough to have me come do one last presentation, especially since Dave had just missed the last two, so we had to get Dave back in the loop.
And I don't think you plan on asking for money, Dave.
Nope, not me. I'm done with that. So we started, I don't know how long it's been. It's probably been, a year or so ago. We started a water rights planning study with JUB. That was a resolution we brought to you a while back, and we are now ready to present present those findings to you. This is just a planning study. It was done to look at a few things with water rights, and as we go on to the next slide, I can kind of cover some of that stuff. So basically what we're doing is I'm just going to kind of go over a quick overview that kind of goes from start to finish, and then Nathan's going to get into the meat of it, and so we're just kind of tag teaming this presentation. So the project statement, the city needs to secure a sustainable water portfolio amidst rapid population growth, climate change, drought, and legal complexities. So that was kind of the project statement for this study. In this study, we were looking at answering some of these questions. Do we have enough water for the future? Water's been a hot topic over the years, and so that was one of the things that we wanted to look at. Can we keep drilling for water in the city, or will the aquifer run dry? Are our water policies current? Are any changes needed? If we have water surplus today, why are we still requiring developers to bring water? Can we just allow developers to pay a fee instead of bringing in more water rights? And can we actually count on Kennecott and Vernon water rights for our future needs? So that was kind of basically some of the things that we wanted to get answered in the planning study. So the water rights planning study is a strategic roadmap for water policy. There was three documents that was utilized for this study. The 40-year plan, its role was to protect the assets. Its relationship to this study was to provide the legal inventory. The planning study guides its usability. The master plan, design the pipes and tanks, was the role. The relationship provides the project list. The planning study guides the timing. And the reuse plan, create an alternative supply, was the role, and provides the method. The planning study gives the volume, or guides the volume, was the relationship to the planning study. The water rights planning study was to execute the strategy, synthesizes all above into a prioritized policy roadmap. So that's kind of basically what we was after in this planning study. This planning study does work in tandem with the previous planning studies, the water master plan, the water reuse plan, and the 40-year water rights plan. So then the start with the end. So basically I'm just going to kind of give you the conclusion up front and where we are. So on paper, the city and the district hold a portfolio of 19,205 acre-feet of water rights. However, paper rights do not equal wet water, as you guys know that. After applying necessary engineering adjustments, converting irrigation rights to municipal use, which yields only about 55% water, and applying a 10% safety buffer for drought, our actual reliable usable supply is approximately 12,365 acre-feet. So where do we need to be? So the deficit. So based on a 2% growth rate, which is the growth rate the Governor's Office of Economic Development uses, the city's annual water demand will rise to 16,576 acre-feet by the year 2060. This creates a project deficit of roughly 4,200 acre-feet that we must acquire to sustain the city throughout build-out. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we're at. So what do we require of developers? So because the Tooele Valley is legally closed to new appropriations, the city cannot simply file for new water rights. We must acquire them from existing holders. So that's where the developers come into play. Therefore, we must strictly maintain our policy that development pays its own way. We cannot accept fees in lieu of water rights because there is no guarantee the city can purchase water later. So we don't want to transfer the burden of finding water rights onto the city administration. We want to keep that with the developers. That's basically residential. We still, I think, from what we looked at in the study, I think we're still okay doing that with commercial. You still have some out there for commercial. You don't have to worry about putting that burden on the commercial ones. But I do still want to give you I don't know, my 2 cents of just watching who we give water to for commercials. You've been really good of watching that with like car washes, with high water users. I say you continue doing that. Maintaining the current exaction policy is the most viable mechanism to close the deficit without shifting the burden to existing ratepayers. So with that, that's kind of where I just kind of went through and just kind of gave you the first kind of 4 slides, kind of just went through those. I did kind of just read most of that information, but that's kind of what I wanted to kind of just bring to the table as we start this discussion. And then we'll have kind of Nathan go into a little bit more of the meat of the policy, or of the there's a mind blank. Study. Yeah, study. Thank you.
Okay, so as you can see, we've got 3 policy and acquisition outcomes or goals that we're looking for. We want to continue to make exactions from our developers. We want to continue to ask for 20 or 0.25 acre feet for indoor use, and then the 4 acre feet for outdoor when they're using sod as their main landscaping source. We also feel like it's important for us to protect as many of our water rights as possible to keep them from, keep the state from taking them, and in the case of the Kennecott rights, we want to make sure that the Kennecott can't pull those back from us before we have had a chance to use them if possible. That's a kind of a big ask, but we definitely want to exercise our rights where we have them. And then no net increase. We want to keep groundwater use stable despite our population growth, which we know is accelerating quite rapidly. So you can see, because of our vitality and quality of life, economic vitality and quality of life, that our growth is driving our need to protect our long-term water and really shoot for better planning. Right now, we're right around 40,000 residents, and in 2060, we're projected to double that. So we have twice as many people to provide water for within the next 35 years, and so we've got a lot of work to do. Our current water rights portfolio, as Jamie mentioned, appears robust. It looks like we have quite a bit at our disposal, but there's different restrictions on that water based on where it's at and where we can divert it to. And so you can see on this graphic that we've got the 23,000 acre feet that we have rights to by place of use, where we can get to it. There's the 19,205 feet where we have rights by point of diversion, and the 149 actual water rights that we own outright. So how our usable water supply is, it's roughly half of what we actually have on paper. The depletion allowance is something that I had to look into. I didn't understand what depletion was. It's basically the water that traditionally, when a farmer would use his water right, would be considered going into the crop and not going back into the aquifer, or some other production means would remove that from recharge. And so this is just a calculation to account for water that's not going back into the aquifer. And then we have the 10% D rating in drought years that helps us to account for the climate that we live in and some of the other factors that we have to plan against with dwindling water and increasing populations. So our usable depleted supply is actually 12,000 acre feet of water. Now, this creates some problems for us as starting as early as 2035. It gets worse the further out we go if we don't do anything now to kind of get ahead of that. Our supply will be outpaced by our population growth beginning in about 2035. So we're about 9 years ahead of it right now. And our first deficit will show up about 2035 at 327 acre feet, which doesn't seem like much, but it starts the process for a pretty exponential growth of deficit. So when we think about planning for water, and if we're exacting water from our developers and trying to stay ahead of it by planning for reuse and doing different things like that, we're hoping to kind of keep that number down by our being proactive rather than being reactive later on. So now it's a little harder to stay ahead of our peak flow demands. The state requires us to have a certain amount of water available to us based on our peak day. Our peak day is measured by how much our system pumped out of our wells on the most productive day of the year, which, can be indicative of how much water we're using. It can be indicative of how much water we put in a reservoir. It's statistics. It's what you make of it. But it is a good indicator that we need to do a better job of having more water available to us when we need it throughout the year. And so this graph here suggests that in near the year 2030, we start to lose our advantage of having a peak day demand surplus, which affects our ability to protect against fires and provide water for critical resources. So we need to be able to, in this case, they're saying that if our largest well was offline, we'd be in trouble to be able to meet that peak day demand that the state requires us to maintain. So the other problem is that we can't simply drill new wells or move water freely. There's some limits on what we can do with our water rights. Tooele is a closed basin. We can't apply for new water rights. They've given us the amount of water rights that we have in the valley, and we have to just find who's got them and try and get them from them, or through purchasing or trading or whatever it is that we can do. There are restricted zones. There are certain areas around the Tooele Army Depot, for one, it has the contamination plume that we're not allowed to drill in or around. And there's also some water rights that we can't move. Some water rights we can apply for a change of location. There are some that we cannot move, and the Vernon rights are ones that we cannot move. We'd have to use them where they're at. And if there is a permit to change the place of use, we can do that, but we'd have to leave the water rights on that well in that space. So the recommended strategy to close the gap is to bring together a few different strategies and use them together. We would expand our water reuse, which would kind of come out of the reclamation facility. Currently, we're using that water to water that golf course down there in Overlake, and there is some infrastructure available in Overlake where we could use that for secondary water and maybe possibly expand that into the rest of the city. Build smarter infrastructure, pursue regional partnerships, which is probably one of our more long-term goals. But again, if we could compile resources with other entities in the area, we might be able to really help the Tooele Valley, not just Tooele City. And then acquire and optimize our policy, and then conserve as much as possible and manage our demand. So acquire water rights through our developer exaction policy. We want to continue to pursue as many water rights as we can through the developer exaction policy. We're going to close the gap by trying to achieve that 3,000 acre feet that will put a bigger dent in the deficit that we currently have. And we also want to start efforts at conserving water. If we can start encouraging water-wise landscaping in our developing and possibly looking for opportunities to use the reuse water rather than using our culinary water to water landscaping and sod, we can use more of the culinary water for culinary purposes. We also need to, like I said earlier, develop that water reuse at the water reclamation facility, and do a better job of taking that water and distributing it to a wider range of customers, to be able to still stay somewhat green, but to use water that's suited for that purpose. And then we still need to drill wells, but we need to do it in the right places. And so we want to go near future growth and demand centers. For instance, the new Perry's development has set aside some land in one of their parks for our next test well, and we would continue to pursue opportunities like that with future developments where we could keep the water closer to our development and not have to pipe it long distances. Because piping water long distances is really expensive. You can see in the graph provided that developing water in place is much more cost effective than trying to pipe it long distances. The Honoring Well, Barrack Wells, and the West A Well, all you can tell are much more expensive to try to transport water based on footage and construction costs and trying to find easements and other issues that we don't face when we construct a well near a neighborhood or a park that's right in the city limits. So from here on out, we're trying to implement this roadmap based on the water plan, and in conjunction with our 40-year plan and the other documents that we've used to put this together. We want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on our aquifer and that we're providing for aquifer recharge, and we're taking care of the ground sources so that we're not polluting it. We got good water to draw from. We want to complete the Rogers Well Road and begin phase 1 of our water reuse expansion. We'd also like to refine the developer exaction policies. Maybe we can tweak those a little bit and come up with a little more robust policies to help us accumulate more water and maybe help us in that regard. Phase 2, we would go on to growth and efficiency. We would really start trying to acquire those 2,000 acre feet of water rights and expand our conservation programs to achieve that 15 to 20% reduction. And then start looking at some kind of regional water authority framework or participation with other entities to pool resources. And then phase 3, much later, the 2040 to 2065 range, achieve the 3,000 acre feet of acquired rights and maintain a 10 to 15% drought resilient surplus. And by that time, hopefully beyond my time here as Public Works Director, we have a regional system that's fully optimized. So right now we're going to work on completing the Rogers Well. Pumping should be commencing within this week or next. We're hoping, site's been mobilized and we're well underway to start that process. And then we launch our infill well land and test program where we're looking for sites where we can keep water close to people and development centers, and then begin our reuse expansion by looking at ways to get secondary water from the water reclamation plant onto lawns and gardens and where it can be most beneficial. So the bottom line, by planning on a conservative, depleted drought-tolerant basis, I think we need to be very careful about saying how much water we have, because we do have it on a limited basis, and it is expensive to extract. But we do need to start planning ahead now to make sure we have the water we need, especially as we see development coming in as fast as it is and as heavy as it is. We're grateful for the people that are coming. We're grateful for the people that are coming here, but we want to be able to provide them with the resources that they need to enjoy the lifestyle that the current residents of Tooele City are enjoying at this point. And so for us to get through to 2060, we've got a lot of planning and preparing to do, but I think this water rights study will give us a good roadmap to get there. If you have any questions or comments, let me know.
All right, go ahead with any questions or comments. I'm sure there's plenty.
Yeah, so we can't get any more water rights, but we don't have enough water. We're not pulling enough water for the rights we have, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so that's the reason for more wells.
Yes.
But one thing that was new to me is that we cannot move the Vernon water to our valley?
We can't remove the Vernon water rights. The water rights have to stay at the Vernon well. We can bring the water here, but we can't move the rights.
So the water would,
Is that correct? That's correct.
so the water would just be added to use for the rights we have?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I know that there's like the 7,000 acre feet of water that's Kennecott water that we need to do something with, but do we know, well, and then you gave us the graph of how many water rights that we're not using, which is like half of, because we don't have enough water.
Yeah. Well, the half that we're not using is half that we don't really have access to because it's depletion. So we have the water rights, but the state considers them, and Paul, if you can, someone can correct me on deplete. I'm not very good on depletion. Am I right on depletion?
Yeah. Those were irrigation rights,
Okay.
and irrigation rights are leaky. When you convert those to municipal rights, which are tight, you have to take a derating factor, which
Right.
converts that original irrigation right down by 55%.
So the Vernon water, the Varick water, is the Varick water irrigation?
We have it's 149 rights with a big complicated web of amount of irrigation versus other uses. And so
Okay.
we've done that process, and that's the aggregate of what's available in wet water. To answer your question on Vernon, that water you could develop in Vernon and pipe here. But that's one of those even larger on the scale of cost per gallon. We
Oh,
were
yeah,
at
for
$15
sure.
per gallon. We didn't even plot Vernon for that reason.
Right. Okay, and so, I mean, but we're still poking holes in the ground, and we don't know how much water we have underneath the ground.
We do.
Oh, we do know
And
how
there's
much water?
plenty of water underground.
Okay, so we do know that. That's good to hear.
Yes, there's lots of water underground.
So we can still drill more wells?
And we can drill more wells.
So that was my question. How do we monitor the aquifer? That was one of the recommendations, was to monitor it, but
Right
how do we
now-
actually do that?
We monitor aquifer when we drill a new well, and we measure the drawdown from that specific location. So it's a per well basis. There could be additional aquifer monitoring that you do separate from when you drill a new well. But as it happens, every time a new well is drilled, we collect that data, and the state engineer adds that to his data set, and they have a valley-wide model that checks the aquifer health. And we use our internal models for a specific well location, and it's proofed against the state engineer's model to show that we can continue drawing more.
So if I understood you right, then the whole county, because you have everybody poking holes in the ground, is working together on watching that aquifer amount.
State engineer's job is to tell us how much is available in the aquifer.
Okay, yeah, Erda, Stansbury, I mean, they're
Yep.
all poking holes. Okay.
And we haven't drawn enough out to meet the state engineer's limit for how much the whole valley could draw.
Okay.
And it's a first come,
Is there-
first serve.
And there's not a projection really there, because you don't know.
There is a projection
There is a
on
projection.
how much the aquifer at its current state can handle. It's like 60,000 acre feet. And we have plenty of gap between what we're currently drawing to that 60,000. I'm
Right.
not quoting the exact number.
Okay, and so you said, though, we can't get more water rights. That's against, unless what? The state changes the rules?
Exactly. The state would have to say some condition change. We have an external driver that's feeding water into the valley, but there is no driver like that. No new water's arriving through rainfall to change how the valley behaves.
Yeah, I got more questions, but somebody else ought to be able to have a turn.
Well, I want to ask one.
Okay, go Dave.
And since you knew what you just said, and you're an expert, so I'm going to consider that to be facts. So my next question would be, could you be a nice young man and tell us exactly where we need to drill to get the water? That'll
what this
save us
guy's
a
job
lot of
is.
money,
If
man.
wishes were fishes, Dave, I think that's probably the same. right?
Three-way thing.
The way we handle it is we do 2 test wells per 1 production well, because we don't know what it'll do. The cost per test well is less expensive. It's a smaller borehole. It is expensive to do a test well, but it's a 6-inch hole instead of a 26-inch hole. So we do 2 test wells, and we choose which of those is most viable to move to production. If both of them are great, we now have 2 production wells we developed from those 2 test wells. So we're proposing a 2-in-1 strategy, and Once we have that, we'll have a portfolio of test wells, and our goal is to develop 5 new production wells so that you can keep pace with drawing the water. What we found in the Rogers well is a viable well, good recovery, and it tells us we should drill more.
Okay, and
Local
so,
to
and
the
that's what
info.
we've been doing, correct? I mean, it seems like we have the whole time I've been around. We're drilling 2, we're trying to drill 2 at a time to test.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Do we have other test sites, though, like the land acquired and?
So like I said, the Perry's development has set aside land for us, and after that, we need to look for more opportunities in more places. But that's definitely on the plan. When we have a developer come in, we're definitely looking at their proposals and saying, looking for prime land where we can say, yeah, that looks like where we want to drill wells. And so it's definitely what we want to do is continue to look for those opportunities.
So my next question might be hacking on the government, just so you know.
You're good.
Okay, so we don't want to change our exaction, is what you're saying in the report. We want to keep it where it is.
You either
But
keep it where it
but-
is or make it a little more stringent, but that's what I would say,
But
yeah.
you hear from rumors,
Yeah.
and I think half the legislature are developers, that this state wants it to be part of the decisions on that.
Yeah.
Is that what you're hearing?
Well, I just saw the news story today that the bill that passed the House, I believe, where they were thinking of increasing the percentage of water fees, I'm getting the wrong term, but to 3%
Be 501.
of the median household income for the area, which would be a pretty substantial bump for what we're doing right now. That's one way to raise money for water and wastewater projects, but I think this is a really good way for us to stay in water without affecting the ratepayers too much. I think that may come, and that may be an important part of our strategy to take care of some of our infrastructure needs, but I don't know that having the state a part of that would be our preferred method. I can only speak on my own.
I'm not saying they're giving us a choice, I'm just
Well,
wondering.
yeah, and that I see that coming, yes. I see there seems to be, if there's 900 bills? 900 bills is a lot of bills.
About water.
Well, just bills, period, and I think there's been quite a few about water. So it's a precious resource, and I think
It just seems like somehow we need to be able to find a way to control our own destiny, and rather than have the
Agreed.
state be part of that. And
Agreed.
A lot of pressure from up there, I think, it appears, just listening to people.
Yeah, no, I
So-
think we're very much better suited to take care of our own needs here.
So somehow we gotta make that happen. You're in charge of that, right?
Well, I guess. I'll do my best.
I've got a question,
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the Rogers well, we don't have plans for a storage tank there.
No.
So that water just goes directly to the consumer, or it
Yeah,
goes into,
well-
it pumps into other storage tanks? I'm not for sure the
No, the
process.
plan for the Rogers Road well is to pump it into the system. We will have a specific length of pipe for contact time for chlorine before it gets to customers, so it will be disinfected. But for right now, we do not have a plan for a tank. We figured it would help pressurize the system and feed everything north of the railroad tracks. So all the land north of the railroad tracks would be helped with air pressures, and the added development that we've got would be benefited by that well. And really that is the area that we need more wells in, is north of the railroad tracks with all the future development that's coming. And so that's where the emphasis would be, other than maybe some of the infill sections in Tooele south of the tracks where we might be seeing some more interest in developing.
And I was also wondering, how many acre feet are we producing per well? We had we know what the projected needs are. When we develop a well, how many feet are we developing?
It depends on the well. Some of our bigger producers, I think we are estimating that Rogers Well Road will end up producing somewhere around 2,000 to 3,000 feet per minute? Gallons per minute. So it's going to be a pretty big producer from what we can tell. A lot of the other wells vary from anywhere from 250 gallons per minute up to 1,500 to 2,000 gallons per minute. So converting that to acre feet is beyond my brain. Standing at this microphone, being nervous, but
Sorry.
do you have an acre feet? We can do about 1 to 1. 1 to 1. Okay. So 1 to 1.
So 2,000 gallons per minute, about 2,000 acre feet.
Okay.
And there's a table.
Oh, there's a table in here that will explain that, and I'll find that and I can send an email.
So is the benefit of a tank, like where we're actually storing it, I understand there's pressure that comes with it, it helps with pressure, but is it also to help with like drought periods, or is it more just pressure and?
It's more just pressure.
Okay.
Storage for a tank of the size, the one at Barra, for instance, would be depleted rather quickly in the instance of an emergency.
And that's 1 million gallons,
Yeah, it's
right?
1 million
Okay.
gallons. So we really can't depend on that for emergency storage situations. But we can, for pressure systems, having a tank up on a hill really helps with keeping the system pressurized. But we feel like this well will do an adequate job of that on its own, based on what we're seeing.
Okay.
I did notice that, we're approaching phase 2 in this plan. It's 4 years away, so,
Yeah.
that's like right now.
Yeah, it's coming.
So I have some concern for that. And I also wondered, we did 2 test wells when we tested Rogers, and the one that's by Home Depot didn't produce viable water. Is there a plan for us to be able to treat that water, to be able to make that wet water usable that doesn't quite meet the standard?
We can. We have kind of focused more on drilling wells where we don't have to treat, so we're going to try and look for that water first. Because the treatment option is a little more expensive, we wanted to hold off if we can. Now, if the next few wells we drill require treatment, we will go that direction, because that we've kind of proven that we will need to treat. But like I said, we're pretty confident that if we can follow kind of the line that Rogers Wells on, or Rogers Road is on, we'll be able to find water that doesn't need as much treatment or need treatment at all. And that's kind of the goal right now, is to kind of reduce the amount of needed infrastructure as we find this water.
Could that water that needs to be treated be considered secondary water? That, like we have secondary water from our reclamation plant. Could those wells that produce but aren't potable?
It depends on the contaminant. This one, I believe the sulfides, or is it sulfides is high?
It's low.
Or phosphates, is it?
The high school well is low quantity and poor water for a number of contaminants. It's part of the pool, and all water could be used, but let's look at water from a cost per gallon basis and do the whole system in terms of treatment, storage, piping, and pumping, and then put it in your basket. And so high school could be a viable item in your basket, but we're going to throw it way down the list and find less expensive water and develop that first, and still keep it in the basket, but when we see it, we're going to sort it and put it in the Vernon side of the basket, just because it's expensive to treat and it's low volume, and so the cost per gallon is really high for that. And in terms of secondary water, it doesn't meet the secondary standards, it doesn't meet the primary standards. It's not a great well to start with, and so we picked a bad egg. That's the nature of drilling, and that's the 2-in-1 approach. To help, at least one could work.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Okay.
So the secondary water system, it's probably been a year or two since I think we got some numbers on that to actually get that system working and getting it to the end user. And I think in this report on the slide, it said it was like 5 million, but I remember it being a lot more than that. Is that to get it to just like the temple side, or is it the new development going in around the temple? Because my understanding has always been the infrastructure that currently is in place is not viable, it's not working, so it would really be starting from scratch.
That's probably accurate, I would imagine. That we'd probably get it to places where we can put new in now.
Okay.
And then work on rehabbing old system or replacing old system as we move on.
And then the conservation numbers, I think 15% was the goal. Is it realistic to go higher than that, or is 15 kind of like, if we get to 15, that's really, really good that we conserved 15%, but.
I know a few years ago, the governor had his 25% by 25, and I think they surpassed that. I think they hit 26 or 27 by 24 or 23. So I think it's doable, but I think we start conservative and see how people respond to it, and then we can kind of work on it that way. I think it's doable, but it's definitely something we would have to kind of work at.
In my mind, I think you have your big water users, right? Like a school has a ton of sod, and if we can get them to conserve and reduce the amount of water they're using, it's not the homeowners that I think we need to attack first. It's the big water users that we all know who they are, who we think they are. I'm sure the city has a list of who they are, so going to them first and getting them on board would be important, so. Okay, any other questions?
I'm excited there's lots of water underground.
Yeah.
I like that.
Find it. We gotta find it.
But how does a drought affect that, though? Because, I mean, we could have 7 years of horrible winters like we're having right now, and then is there all of a sudden not water in the aquifer? And then I've always been told if we deplete it too quickly, then it takes decades to replenish it. And so I think we can't control the weather, right? The droughts can change all of this quickly has always been my understanding, but maybe I don't understand how the aquifer is replenished either, so.
I think that's a valid question. I think there was one graph that I was looking at last night, and if I can find it really quick, I'd point you to it. But it explained kind of the weather patterns over the drought cycle in Utah over the last, I believe it's page. If you go to page the start of 3.9, the data summary there. And you can look, they've got drought and wet year data listed there from 1895 all the way up to 2025. And you can see I mean, it yo-yos back and forth quite a bit. You can see the big wet years in 1982, 83, and then again 96, 97, 98. So we have these events that kind of cycle through, and we kind of think, yeah, we're in a drought, but I think we also have to rely on Mother Nature kind of correcting herself every once in a while too. I think you can see from 1950 to 1965, you've got a pretty prolonged drought cycle there that you don't see too many other places in that timeline. And so, yeah, it's a complicated issue, and the way that we're using water in the state with more people here definitely is affecting that aquifer and its ability to recharge. But I think that the conservation efforts that the state's pursuing and some of the efforts that we can look at and start to implement will help that in the long run. And so hopefully we can find those solutions that'll help in the end.
I think that's a great response. Thanks, Nathan. I wanted to add that we have a drought layer applied to your planning. We put a 10% drought layer on top of it. So when we say there's a 4,000 acre-feet deficit, that includes a 10% drought overlay. And so the deficit with just the difference between depletion only would be 90% of your deficit. The last 10%, we put that 10% overlay on there, meaning that deficit includes drought planning. Okay. If you meet that target, you have a 10% buffer for one of these dry years to happen during depletion. What happens during extended drought is there's curtailment on water rights. The amount that users can pump gets reduced. But because you have 10% extra you plan for, curtailment at 10% is not going to affect your ability to deliver water to the users. That's a key distinction and great question.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments?
I'd kind of like a copy of your presentation, just so that I can review it.
We can definitely send it to you.
Okay, great discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 6. It's a closed meeting. We do have a closed meeting tonight to discuss litigation and/or property acquisition. So I'll entertain a motion to move to a closed meeting.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we move to the closed meeting.
I'll second it. We have a motion from Councilman Hanson and a second from Councilman McCall. We'll take it to a vote. Councilman McCall?
Aye.
Councilman Hanson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Goches?
Aye.
Councilman Gossett? I'm Councilman Brady, and I vote aye. That passes 5-0. So it's 6:23. We'll recess here, and then we'll reconvene in the large conference room for a closed session.